Welcome to Parshas Mishpatim. It should be Le'ilu Nishmas, Kfir and Ariel Bibas, that was returned today, and it should be Le'ilu Nishmas, all of the hostages that unfortunately perished. It should be Refuah Shlema, Mordechai and Sarah, and all those who need a refuah. There's a story about Rav Yitzchak the Baal Shem of Mechelstadt, who was known for his wisdom even as a young boy. So one day he was invited to the palace of the local duke, and the duke, curious to test the young boy's intelligence, instructed all his servants and attendants to leave the palace halls, ensuring no one would be available for Yitzchak to guide him to his room. So when Rav Yitzchak arrived, he found the palace empty and no one to ask for directions. Determined to find the duke's room, he began searching for clues. So as he walked through the grand corridors, he noticed that all the rooms had their windows open and the sunlight coming through, but there was one room that had its window closed and the curtains were shut. So Yitzchak approached this room, knocked on the door, and was greeted by the Duke himself. Impressed, the Duke revealed that he had intentionally removed everyone from his palace to see how Yitzchak would navigate the situation. So the Duke then asked Yitzchak, "What would you have done if my servants had been present, but each had given you a different answer or were trying to confuse you? What would you have done in that situation?" So without hesitation, Yitzchak replied, "I would have followed the majority." So the Duke, intrigued by the boy's wisdom, continued, "You're a clever child and a Jew, yet Jews are a minority, while Christians are an overwhelming majority. Why do you remain Jewish? You should follow the majority." At first, Yitzchak felt offended by the question. Then he responded with confidence. The principle of following the majority applies only when there is a doubt. But I have no doubt about my faith. It is clear to me that I am following the true path. When there is certainty, one does not follow the majority. And indeed, the Chassam Sofer was asked a similar question and responded in the same manner. This week's Parsha, we learn about an Ivri, a Hebrew servant, who after serving for 6 years decides to continue his servitude. So the Torah commands that his ear be pierced by the door or doorpost. Rashi explains why the ear. The ear that heard at Har Sinai, Lo Tignov, do not steal, and yet he stole and had to give himself over as a slave. Or if he sold himself out of poverty, the ear that heard Kili b'nei Yisrael avodim and chose another master. So Rav Shimon Schwab poses a sharp question. From Rashi's second explanation, it seems that the Lo Tignov that he's referring to is the one in Aseret Dibros. And thus, Lo Tignov is not regarding stealing property, but about kidnapping, stealing a person. So what connection does this have to the case of an Ivri? So Rav Schwab answers that when someone kidnaps, they're not merely taking a body, but they're stealing a soul from Bnei Yisrael. They're taking a human being who belongs to Hashem, who's the true Baal, the true owner of every human and soul. Similarly, when a person chooses to remain a servant to another human being, they are in essence stealing their own soul and body from Hashem. By choosing another master, they are denying their status as Avdei Hashem, servants of Hashem, and rather giving it over to another. And thus, that's why it specifically chose Lo Tignov. He's not listening to Lo Tignov at this stage where he is now giving himself over Olam forever to this other master other than Hashem. Famous pasuk, ayin tachas ayin, an eye for an eye. On the surface, right, this literally means that there's a physical retribution. You take my eye, I take your eye. However, Chazal teach us that this means that there is monetary compensation, not taking an eye literally, but paying the value of the lost eye, or whatever it may be, whatever damages that may have been caused. So the question arises, that the Torah really meant ayin tachas ayin. It would have been more appropriate to use the word ba'ad in exchange for, rather than tachas, under. So the Kol Eliyahu from the Vilna Gaon presents a brilliant insight into this ayin tachas ayin, to this phrase. The word tachas, under, hints at looking underneath each letter in the word ayin, according to the aleph base. Under ayin is pei, under yud is chaf, under nun is samich. Those letters spell kesef, meaning money, which is a remez to Chazal's explanation that ayin tachas ayin is referring to monetary compensation, not literal retribution. This week's Parsha mentions the well-known prohibition of basar v'chalav, eating meat and milk together, with the famous verse, Lo s'vasel gedi b'chalevi mo, which Chazal learn that this is written 3 times, and derives 3 isurim. In Isser Bishul, it's forbidden to cook meat and milk together. In Isser Achila, it's forbidden to eat meat and milk together. And there's an Isser Hana, it's forbidden to benefit from a mixture of meat and milk together. The Ramah rules that any mixture of basar v'chalav, which is only forbidden midirabanan, is mutar b'hana, it's permitted. This means that while it's forbidden to eat such mixtures, it would be allowed to, for example, sell them or use them in other ways. So the Balei HaShulchan asks, why did the Ramah only forbid eating, but allow benefiting from a rabbinically forbidden basar v'chalav? After all, the Torah forbids all 3 of them, so it should apply, if by a derabanan, all 3 prohibitions. So my cousin, Rav Zachariah Holzer, offers an explanation based on the Talmud HaRashba. The Talmud HaRashba was in manuscript and was brought to life, published by my uncle, Rav David Holzer, and Zachariah together. And he explains based off the Talmud HaRashba that the Isser Hana of basar v'chalav is a gezerah. It's a protective decree, min Torah. Why? Basar and chalav are both mutter, are permitted on their own. And since both are inherently permissible, there's a greater risk that someone might accidentally eat them together. So to prevent accidental consumption, the Torah made a gezerah to forbid even benefiting from the mixture, thereby increasing caution. However, if the Ramah, so now that we see that this Isser Hana, that benefiting, is a gezerah, if the Ramah were to extend this gezerah to rabbinically forbidden basar v'chalav, it would be like making a gezerah legezerah, a decree on top of a decree, which Chazal generally avoided. And therefore the Ramah permitted Hana in cases of derabanan, because otherwise it would have been a gezerah legezerah, which we don't usually say in halacha. Good Shabbos.